art and public art installation on public lands of the city. So the question is, moving forward, what does the commission do and what does Webster Arts do? Is Webster Arts, as it seems and what I understand, is expanded and grown, but also this commission is expanded and grown in its reach and its things that it does beyond public art. And into things like Lifetime Achievement, which seems to be a signature program, but also different programs and events and cultural activities and things like that. So that's basically it. And then what's in this outline too, you'll see just like, things of outlining the basics of Webster Arts Commission, some of the signature programs like the Lifetime Achievements, talks a little bit about the Public Art Fund. These are all things I just pulled from the website. I didn't really change too much language. And then on here too, you have the Webster Groves Code of Ordinances, which outlines for you in a really succinct way, what all the ordinances are, from the functioning of the Arts Commission to the title of the works, display of works, composition of the commission, etc. And then at the last page, you see Webster Arts, which again, just pulling from the website, what they've done, how they've grown, how they've expanded. I did put a recommendation in here after the executive summary on page 1 to say, should we just focus on public art projects and Lifetime Achievement Award and let Webster Arts function with all the different activities that it does, making sure that, of course, all those activities are coordinated with the city and helping the city, etc. But the question is really, what degree is the commission playing in this? And then also, the big thing I like to point to is just, proposed budget, so if you are focusing on something like public art. Well, public art is expensive. So, what's the annual budget? What is the city kind of dedicating to this commission and to the projects to make sure that the projects are happening? So those are all questions. Those are all questions for, in a sense, this body to deliberate.
Yeah, does anybody have any immediate response in?
I guess my response would be, I think this is a good conversation to have because I think it's been very muddy. And I also think that the Webster Arts Group is doing some really amazing things that we don't need to potentially compete with. I think we need to define, because it doesn't make sense to have two groups trying to kind of vie for dates for things and what we're doing. I think that trying to carve out niches for each of those groups would be important and would help discourage like cannibalization of audiences and trying to figure out, like exactly how we're going to operate with each other. So I think this is a good conversation to have.
I do have a question. Did anybody else have? Jan, are you waving? Yeah, sorry.
Yes, I have a question about Webster Arts. I guess I thought I've been here 5 years now, back from Boston, and I would say Webster Arts, I thought, was more about art, like painting, or I didn't think of it as encompassing all kinds of art. So arts being drama, dance, music, I didn't think it was. So, and I thought that the Webster Arts Council encompassed more of all of it. Is that not true?
I guess that's what we're trying to decide, right? I mean, I think that's the
Because
sticking point.
because that's what I thought it was. I never thought it was any more than that. I mean, it's not like I never saw them do any.
Jan, I would say let's refer to the ordinance itself, and it says the function of the Arts Commission shall be to acquire, maintain, and display works of art at sites within the boundaries of the city, to determine which, and yada yada yada, goes on and on. I mean, we're really talking about public art here. I mean, for public display.
So that's what I'm saying. That's the definition. The main thing we need to go back to and say, what is that? Is it just physical sculptures? I mean, because certainly a performance, you know, like a Shakespeare in the Park type of thing on our public land would be under it, or that's how music came in and two other things, so. I just think we need to define if it's just sculptural, you know, things, then that's what we consider, in the city, consider public art. You know, but really, any art to the public is what, like what Jan was saying, you know, would be, I would think under our. What?
Maybe we need to redefine what we're doing then, because we really are doing music also. Aren't we?
Well,
Well, and poetry and.
It says it here, and it, yeah, I would say if you read it here strictly, it kind of just means sculpture, but then it goes on, you know, when it says, display works of art at sites within the boundaries of the city. So that could fit anything, you know?
Well, I also understand that our public arts fund is only a tax exempt donation if it is a physical object that we are purchasing.
Right.
Which is tricky because, you know, if we
No,
expand
that's-
to
but that's the kind
events
of-
and things.
That's the kind of thing that is definitive. you know,
Right,
So everybody can point to that, obviously, you know, performance or you know, poetry reading isn't anything that would be permanent.
So I have to be the big bad city official here for a minute and say, you know, this organization or this commission has essentially engaged in mission creep, which is what happens with a lot of organizations. That's not uncommon at all. Because the ordinance, it defines what this commission should be doing, and it is a fairly narrow definition of what you should be doing. When this commission says, well, we want to define our mission, we want to define what we're doing. Actually, council does that. So if you want to change the definition, you have to bring it to council for council to approve a change in definition.
Okay,
I'll be perfectly honest, this commission has gotten to do whatever it wanted in ways that other commissions have not. Part of that was because everything you want to do is a good idea. But I do think that we need to be careful to remember that the ordinance defines what your job is as a board or commission.
I think what we have to define is just the word arts. That arts encompasses all the visual and performing arts. And what we should say is it's all visual and performing arts on public land.
that's right.
And then you've got it covered.
Well, wouldn't that be something that, would the council have to actually make that definition more clear?
Yes, we
versus
would
us?
have to change the
One,
ordinance then.
well, just one word, I mean.
No, it's fine. I mean, you can
I mean,
ask
if
us
you
to
said
do
like-
that. That's right. It's
If you
fine.
said like, and display permanent works of art at sites. Okay, then I don't think, you know, everybody would say, well, an art show is not a permanent display, whereas a big sculpture is, you know, it's.
Well, I also think that it just, aside from the whole ordinance, the question of, we have this group that is doing some of this stuff, and like, whether it's a conversation with them to decide like, hey, what's your purview? You know, and this group has done more than kind of what the ordinance suggested, but can we have a working relationship where we each kind of take our lane and stay in it so that we're not trying to, I mean, we've had instances before where they've had an event and we've had an event almost on the same weekend. And it's like, that doesn't make sense. Like, let's make sure that like we are responding to the needs of the community and giving them interesting artistic offerings, but let's not try to compete with each other. So let's have those conversations about
And I
what
think-
makes sense for us and what makes sense for them.
In the past few years, they've been increasingly more difficult to compete with because they've got a
Yeah.
board and they've got full-time staff. They
And
can
the
do-
public
they can
doesn't
just
really
do
care
more
who
things.
sponsors what, right? They just
They don't
want to
know most of the time.
If someone would say like, oh, the Arts Commission, they do that, no one knows. So it's like, I don't
Yeah.
think we need to try to, well, the goal is to get interesting things in our community. So if they're accomplishing some of those goals, great, like more power to them. Let's not try to,
Yeah,
you know,
I think it's also a question about resources, right? So it's like, okay, so if the ordinance is the narrow focus. What is the resource dedicated to support that focus? Or focuses, right? So if you try to expand it, just know that like, you know, the pie is only so big and you start cutting it up. you're not gonna get all that you want. So what do you wanna focus in on? And what does this commission want to, in a sense, advocate and try to do? Understanding Webster Arts is expanding and doing all this.
Yeah. Dottie?
I have to agree that once you make the word arts plural, you're dealing with more than one kind of art, right? And it, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does feel that, when was the original ordinance established?
2016.
No, that, is it really?
No, it's not
It's
that.
it's 06. I noticed that earlier when I read it,
Oh,
I
okay.
was gonna bring it up. when we got
Actually, you're
there.
right, I was wrong.
So,
So 2006.
Yeah, I think it's just a
2006.
typo here, yeah.
I've been on high school, so.
I was gonna say, not as longer than 2016, now that you come to mention. Sorry, Dottie, 2006.
2006, okay. I mean, all governance changes over time. I mean, that's right. That's kind of part of what we do. But I am concerned that if the scope of this remains as narrow as it is, then it does become hard to have any kind of sense of the totality of the arts in the community.
Mhm.
What would it look like to have a sense of the totality of the arts in this community? I mean, what would that entail?
I think more like what we're doing. Our mission creep. But if you have, just as an idea. Remember, there's no bad ideas. If the mission creep was allowed to stay, but it was only on public land owned by the city. So in other words, we would be not involved in anything over here at the Masonic Temple. But then again, we could be involved with the Baroque festivals because it's in a city park.
Yeah, and I mean,
So it's a
So-
work, that's a work of art.
yeah,
Not permanent, but it's a well-established thing and it is on a park. So it seems like if anything happens there, it should go through us to make sure it's proper for the city.
well, I think the question really is. Do you want a redefined arts commission that meets what you're doing right now? And I don't think you have to artificially force that back just onto public lands, because that's what this says here. That's a choice that you can suggest to the council. Here's what we're doing right now. Here's how we want to define our ordinance. That we're going to make that recommendation to you. Whatever changes in here, or you stick more to the definition of the ordinance, which is, I think, was what's being suggested. And then work out the arrangement with Webster Arts as to, I think you used the lanes analogy, whose lane is what lane and how do we do that? They're just two very different ways of thinking about where to go next. And I will say, we haven't talked about it. This is a really bad time to ask the council to find $50,000. We just cut $647,000 out of the budget. We've got to cut equally that amount within the next 3 years in order to even hope to come back to a balanced budget after COVID and escalating costs. So I do think you need to consider that when you're thinking about this. I'm not suggesting it's not a valuable thing. It's the timing is just not great.
Well, I agree, because a lot of people have lost jobs. I mean, so I think from a public standpoint, that would not be looked upon favorably either if public art was getting $50,000 and other people were in the city were losing their jobs.
Let me say this too, that number is just a bold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting the investment isn't worth it, because you think about, how we define our community. But you always have to think about what context you're in. I guess that's my reminder.
The other thing I would like to make is all of the other ways that we have kind of gotten out of our lane have been not with our own money. I mean, it was Michael Silverman, it was the Walter and the parks. So it's almost like we wouldn't have done those things had there not been people that had the funds to do it. And we kind of helped in saying like, oh, we'll put our name towards it and maybe help you with some of that. But it really wasn't an arts commission events, if you think about it. I mean, we didn't have the funds to produce those events, so we've been very lucky to have people that have been wanted to bolster the arts in our community, but even if we hadn't done that, they might have done that anyway. And come to the city and said, hey, could the city just bless this or help us with this? Or, and so that there might be a provision that the Arts Commission could help with volunteering or something like that, but it hasn't been necessarily a spearheading on our part. It's been kind of these things that have come to us.
Well, this sort of references what's last on your memo, which is coordinate efforts in partnership with local government to minimize logistical hurdles. So in some ways, you're not putting, the way this is defined, you're not putting on things, but you're certainly facilitating what happens with the city. And again, that's a very different than where this commission sits right now.
Jan, did you have a? Yeah.
Yes. I think I understand the thing about the money. I'm tagging on to what Dottie said. I think that it might be time to redefine what the Webster Groves Arts Council does, and I think it should be defined now. It doesn't mean that we're going to spend any money or that we can spend money. We'll do the same as we did before. But I think because it encompasses it doesn't encompass only the property, the land of the parks. It doesn't encompass just one kind of art. It encompasses all kinds of art. And it seems to me that it would make more sense for Webster Groves itself to have a council that oversees that. It doesn't mean that we're going to ask for money, but it just means that we should rewrite what our charge is, because we are doing it, whether we use Mike Silverman, whether we use anybody or ask anybody. We're giving awards out to people that did the jazz festival. I mean, it just doesn't make sense that what it says the Arts Council does and what we're doing is not really, to me, the same. So I feel like we should go ahead and just do it and ask the council to approve it. We're not going to ask for any more money because everybody's hard pressed, but that just lets us, whatever, Poetry Week or whatever we want to do, that then it's definitely defined. I'm also what Marianne said. We're defining all the arts, not just, it doesn't matter to me what Webster Arts does, but I don't think Webster Arts it doesn't do those other things. And
It tries to do some of them.
Actually, it
Yeah.
does.
It's the pianos, that was music focus.
Because I would say if we do change it, I think we should then develop some sort of a sponsorship policy as to how we make decisions as to what events we sponsor. And like maybe have the rules that they must be free to the public or something like that. We're not gonna ever sponsor something that
yeah,
charges $15 a head, that, because that's not
that'd
a
be
public art kind of thing, like just to have those rules, because I know that that's something that even Business Development Commission has thought
So
about.
right now, as part of our revising of all the boards and commission, the entire section of boards and commissions, one of the things across boards and commissions will be a sponsorship policy. How many times can a commission say we want free access to public land to do this? Because remember, that's, an opportunity lost for us for other kind of revenue. We want to encourage those events, but we
Yeah.
also can't do them every single.
We don't want like
Year.
everybody just trying to
But,
co-sponsor with us.
but there will
for
be a
free.
general policy, there will be a general
My
policy, and
party is-
certainly this commission then can tailor that policy, they can put whatever additional requirements on
This is,
based on this.
this is where some of when Patrick and I know he's not here, but we differed in our conversation where I'm more of a less is more approach. To focus and to think about the brand and the communications and things like that. But you gotta remember, Patrick's also, you're involved in most arts too, right? So it's like, so he's kind of approaching it from this different direction as a representative of Webster Arts. So I'm not approaching it as that. I'm approaching it as like, well, Webster Groves Arts Commission is an entity that does X, Y, and Z. And I'm reading based upon what it says in the actual law and the ordinance. But then also, I want to point back to this City of the Arts piece, because I think that's a communications opportunity. And I think it does, and we talked about this in that commission, is like, do we want to, talk about how Shrewsbury is its home, right?
Yeah.
And then
Redwood
That's
is
the
city of warmth.
Yeah, there's a lot of
All of that
lackluster
live in the
there.
center of it.
And we have this one, which is really great, and
Well, I also, I don't know about the sponsorships you're talking about are us sponsor, I mean, the city sponsoring events.
Yeah,
But I'm thinking another point, getting back to what Beth was saying about having. What's ultimately important is that we have these events in the city of Webster Groves. Because Webster Arts is a not-for-profit organization, and so the Silvermans could donate money to have a piano festival. And get a tax write-off for that, as opposed to paying for that. I don't think they get anything from the city if that's not
For,
it's not like a tax write-off for Michael Silverman
No,
to.
it is
have
not,
or the parks to hire all of those.
it's simply generosity on their part
Yeah,
to their community.
so it does feel like if we have an avenue where we can put our support behind some of those programs, but let Webster Arts handle the finances, then I don't know, does that come out as a win-win-win?
I just think we have to define what our support, what does that mean then, our support?
Access to city property, and we can.
support, so like, you
Yeah.
know. Administrative
Advertising.
staff,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, if you want to
Publicity.
close off a street,
Publicity.
help facilitate what it takes to
Yeah.
close off a street, like that type of thing. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because anybody could do that. I just, my worry. Just from a staff perspective, and I might be off base on this, is I worry about people wanting the city to co-sponsor, because then that, like, hoping that that means that they don't then have to pay for the signage, and they don't have to pay for this, and they don't, like, that it's a freebie because we're co-sponsoring, and I think that's part of what. Goes into that, because I mean, it does take a lot of work on our part at the city to do those things.
Well, and I think there's probably, as we go forward, nothing wrong with this commission saying here are different levels of sponsorship. Like, this is important to us. To say this is gonna be one of 3, get parkland for it.
Yeah.
This one, you can put our name on it and we'll go ahead and use the city's social media to help you promote it. So that, you know, the expectations are clear from whoever what sponsorship
Yeah.
actually means.
I mean, I'd encourage too, the commission to think about, I use the word signature a lot, like the signature
Yeah.
program. And what I mean by that is lifetime achievement award,
Yeah.
right? That's a signature program. Public art, whether it's sculpture or something else, an object on public land, that's a signature program. Poetry month, these seem to be signature programs. Baroque art is starting to seem like it is, but again, what resources does this commission put towards that? None, other than like, yeah, it looks good, it sounds good, it was a great program. But it seems like it has to be backed with communication support, city support, and resources, even if a minimal dollar amount. That's why it should be kind of like, okay, we'll just focus on your signatures and then let Webster Arts kind of, you know, they're just exploding. It seems like.
Well, I do agree that in the past, we've had these programs like Poetry Week and stuff, which basically no money towards it, one person trying to run, you know, it was, if we had more focus, there might be more ability for other people on the commission to be like, oh, let's really dig into this earlier, let's make things. So I think that trying to narrow some of our definitions and figure out exactly what is important to this group and what we cover would help us in terms of our meetings, just structuring, keeping on task, realizing what's possible, not kind of going off on tangents and things like that, because then we'll be able to actually accomplish more, in my view. I mean, not that we don't accomplish, not that this group isn't fabulous in accomplishing things, but you know, when you have sort of a wide variety of things, it's hard sometimes to stay, you know.
And I think a couple people here have touched on something that I think is also worth remembering, that it's not free for the city to put things on. And we sucked up 2 days of Jenny's life for the Arts Awards for Lifetime Achievement, which is, you talk about your opportunity cost for other things, like there's staff time involved just in providing publicity and closing the streets, and the Parks Department is giving somebody else
Using the
to set it.
room, that they, you
Using
know,
the room, because they set all that up for us. which is great if it's something that we really want to
Exactly,
support.
yeah.
But we have to recognize that every little thing that we do takes that level of support behind us.
I mean, I'll also say I have bias, like, well, I have a specific thing that I'm interested in, and it's public art. You know, and so, and I know others are more interested in the music piece or the theater piece or poetry piece, which is great. It's great to have that on this body. So again, it's just another question. And I'm biased, and that's what I want to focus on. So everybody knows.
So the focus should really be, is we're supporting City of the Arts. We're supporting the arts within the city limits. Supporting includes possibly the parks and recreations and the police department, and that becomes part of their actual jobs too. That's incorporated in their job. And that's how we do it. So, and it's almost like a barter system instead of money, that they're physically doing things for us. But we're also doing it too. So we may be coming up with some of the ideas, and then they're supporting it to make it actually happen.
Or,
Right.
or even vice versa. I mean, we can drill down really far awfully quickly on the sense of, there's an application form if you want to do something, the city kind of, bring it to here's, and because a lot of times when people come up with great ideas, they don't think about the ancillary costs.
right.
They just don't. This is a fabulous idea, and don't you want to help us? And isn't this great? I mean, I've done that. I'm guilty of that, So, but I think if we can provide some guidance about that through some kind of here's the things for you to consider as you propose something, I think providing guidance probably means more time for us. The group on the commission it's going to take, that's something we would probably have to take on, because there is no staff that can take that on in addition. Does that make sense? So whatever we do to expand, I think we have to acknowledge among ourselves that we're adding to our commitment to what happens, in addition to asking whatever we ask the city, to do as well. And we should take that seriously, I think, as well. But I suspect that in the public eye writ large out in Webster, anything that happens in the arts, people assume that it came through here.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Maybe. I don't know that a lot of people even know that the Arts Commission exists, honestly. Like, I mean, I think that they
Yeah,
think
they
that
might
maybe
think the city.
they might think the city does it, but I don't know
It's the
how.
city, like I'll get texts from people
Yeah.
like Jazz Fest, what time? I was like, I don't do that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's not me, or like.
It's just like some civic.
What day is the arts fair happening? I'm like,
that.
I know it's the first Saturday in June, but it's not like, don't ask
Right.
me anything more about it, cause it's
Right.
not my,
Right.
it's not my event. Yeah.
I think that's also good, the city,
Right.
because this is a public body of
Yeah.
the city, so it's good that the city, and also it falls in line with City of the Arts, so it makes
Yeah.
sense that that's the driving force. But just remember, Webster Arts probably is gonna start playing more of a role in taking that credit and
Mhm.
getting that credit, which is fine, they're working at it.
Yeah.
I agree, but at one point, we also talked last week about having designated seats or a seat or seats on the commission for Webster Arts, so that we would make sure that we were in more of a constant, kind of a more of an official conversation about what each entity was doing. And that may be something to formalize, just to make the communication have some clarity.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that we have attempted to do, which I'm not sure how this fits into the discussion, but it might be sort of what you're talking about, Jan and Dottie. Instead of this group actually putting on events, is for this group to become more of the hub where all of the arts in Webster gets on the city calendar. So not not planning things, but making it so that we have one centralized arts
Yes,
information. I mean, not running
Yeah.
things, but just.
And maybe even then having a representative, like if we have the Webster Arts Foundation representative always on the commission, then maybe also an opera theater representative is always gonna be on the commission, something like that, just to have.
Just to have that communicate, because we do, and we have an impressively long list of arts organizations that live and breathe in and around Webster, who are already running the programs and the music and the theater and if we can figure out a way to centralize that onto a calendar coming out of City Hall.
Yeah, because we have the community events calendar. But it's only as good as the things that are submitted, you know what I mean, like I just time wise don't have the time to search.
Well, no,
To search
and
for
you should-
events for people, yeah, people
It
send,
should come to you.
yeah, yeah.
So-
Again, I'll express some of my bias. I like the idea of putting resources towards communications and communicating already the things that's happening, which they are, you know, it's like the art, whether it's Webster Arts, whether it's Opera Theater, whether it's all these different organizations, they're already doing all of this. But how do you amplify the voice of it? Get it actually out in the public eye and get people to attend it and support it financially. Like, if there's a way to add that piece into it, you know, in terms of support it financially, we need your support. This, you know, this doesn't run on nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. All right. So where are we at this point?
I so feel your.
I think that we're still,
Gonna sum this up.
we're sort of, we should be the umbrella of everything that goes on in Webster.
that's right.
In other words, all these things that are going on are like really subcommittee. And they just have to present whatever they're doing to this commission. And then we just put it all together in a calendar.
But
Okay,
that's a redefining of our,
Yeah,
the responsibilities as well. So that would have to be something that then the council would then, we'd have to basically redefine what our purpose is.
Our purpose is
Yes.
supporting the arts.
as we got this, which is kind of like, let's keep doing what the ordinance says that we're doing. Does somebody feel passionately enough about putting something like this together for Rod? And then like at the next meeting, we could look at both of them and kind of. Do you like plan A or do you like plan B?
No,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, but somebody's gonna have to put their arms around everything the
Yeah.
Arts Commission has been doing, and that's a pretty big task,
Yeah.
actually, right now.
And that's what I'm wondering, because if there's, you know, like. Did the debate team in college, like if there's the resolve that we do this and this is what we do, and then the other person's like resolved, we go big.
yeah,
And then they present both of their cases and we say, I like narrow, I like big, and then we go from there. But I feel like somebody, like you kind of championed
narrow.
you know, and I don't want to say narrow, but you kind of championed original ordinance, we'll say that, like original Coke. And like if somebody wants to champion new Coke and take that on and argue that.
I mean, I know we didn't. We didn't necessarily do a vote, but
Yeah.
it does seem like the majority is talking more about the
The umbrella.
speak up, the umbrella piece of it and the city of the arts type piece of it, right? So it does seem like the commission's more interested in that particular direction rather than the original ordinance. I mean, is that fair?
I would think the overall would be more appealing to people who wanna be on this commission in the future. You know what I mean? If it's narrow like this, it almost seems like you have the Parks Commission and then attached to it is an Arts Commission that will look at sculpture that's gonna go in the parks. You know what I mean? And almost that narrow.
Yeah, I didn't write the original
I
ordinance,
know,
so
but I
I.
mean, Kind of sounds like it's
Well,
I wouldn't say a subsidiary, but a, you know,
It's another
attached to
question
it.
too, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Another question too is like Alex's point, so here, I am for a narrower definition. I don't know that I'm just for public art. And there's a couple of reasons but I'm not sure what narrower means for me yet, but there's a very, especially with a budget issue, because you're right, public art is expensive, and if we don't have any money, then really what is going to be the role of the commission, unless it's to find like very loans or to fix signage, and that's okay, like if that's what it is, but I think people need to be aware that if there is not like a budget to keep bringing in art or to do a big campaign to bring in another piece, whatever that might be, then thinking around how budget implications impact the kind of work that we could do. If it's this more umbrella, people bring projects to us, that confuses me too. I mean, we've had some of those fall in our laps, but I don't think that we can. I feel like the sense may be that people are going to come into the Arts Commission to say, bless this or something, and I don't really understand how that works, because right now they don't have, I mean, are we going to force people to essentially, like, right now, they can, right, so right now they can come to, right now they can come to the city and say, hey, we want to close these streets, and you guys can say yay or nay, and they can pay the fee, and we're not involved at all. So I don't know how making us kind of an umbrella approver or stamp of approval, I don't know how that works. So maybe if someone can think about that a little bit more, great, but I'm not really sure how that functions.
I don't think we ever had a real budget to begin with, did we?
We have
We
had.
always put together things we wanted to do,
Yeah.
and then we'd see how close we could get to that.
Right.
And so that's what I think has contributed from the beginning to the mission creep, because
The other thing
we can't do this, we can't do that, we don't have any money for public art, so let's do poetry.
Yeah,
week,
it could be.
You know,
But the other thing we haven't talked about is, has this commission done much grant writing at all?
No.
We have the Sustainability Commission does grant writing all the time to do the projects they want to do, and so that's another avenue for funding.
totally.
Patrick and I also talked about this in terms of private dollars too, right? So this idea that Webster Art is a nonprofit that's cultivating donors to do X, Y, and Z, and the tax deductibility and things like that. So those are all the variables in it, is that like no money equals how do you get the money to do the projects and programs that you want to do. Thus, which makes sense about the narrow focus. However, I think if the commission, I like this type of thing in terms of your question.
Yeah.
If the commission allows me to just refine the outline of it based upon kind of what I've heard about the umbrella piece, but maybe a hybrid of this idea of integrating the signature programs that I kind of seen, you know, in terms of Poetry Week, you know, hitting the arts piece of it, the holistic arts, but then still staying within kind of a lane a little bit, but then also allowing for kind of this ability to go by request. You can do a form or whatever else to, you know, ask the Arts Commission if you want to engage and things like that, and then it goes before us and we can deliberate.
Alec, I would be very happy to sit with you and work on something like that. Just
Okay.
a sense of having two of us from a more macro and a more micro kind of viewpoint. I tend to work better in a smaller group, or it's easier to go as opposed to, you know, so I'd be happy to work with you on that.
Can I just put one bee into both of your bonnets in that case? Our current art project is, Barbary Park was several years back, and we did that. And that was probably the last thing that we really focused on in terms of public art. And I think John's right. It's been everything we've thought of since then, we couldn't come up with money for, but maybe instead if
It
we,
was a big fundraising
it was a
project.
big fundraising project. So maybe if we instead have a specific goal in mind and go after it with grants and stay focused on that and not
But
get distracted.
I don't think we've gotten, you know, we're having a hard time getting approval for the signs, which would be maintenance of.
Yeah, I'm talking
Something
about
to be done.
outside of the city. I'm talking about, because for Barbary Park, it was private donations.
Right.
If there are grants that we can go after, I mean, if there are other ways of getting money besides always going back to the city and saying.
But having a goal in mind,
But
so trying to, like,
having-
yeah,
yeah.
so then you can
And
find the
staying
appropriate
focused.
reason for that goal.
Instead of saying, well, we can't get money for that, so we're gonna go over here and do something else.
And I will say, the city did put money into that, but they put money mostly into the park improvements to make the site ready for the piece of art that went there, the lovely sculpture.
And it was well over $100,000 in private donations that came in for that. So it's not like it's impossible to get money if you have a specific thing that you're going.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to. Okay, so does anyone have any further comment on that? Sorry, what's your Dottie and Alex and I guess Patrick, if you all would maybe massage this a little bit and come back to us. Is everybody, is that?
Yes, I just want to say thank you to Alex and Patrick for even considering that, putting that work in. I know that's not easy.
I know.
Yeah, I love this stuff.
Well, and it's wonderful to have this laid out because I do think if we want to go back to council, it will be important to have a sort of a white paper just like this.
So, and that reminds me, we are going back to a policy that was developed several years ago that during the pandemic we dropped off, which is annually to have the leadership or whoever the leadership designates of each board and commission to come to a work session for council and just talk about what you're working on. So that we get back to better communicating about things like if council has direction that they want you to look at something, we can do that. If you have something that you really want to work on and you know you're going to need the money, you can raise it with council and that at least gets started. The conversation gets started again in a more formal way.
I know we emailed about that, we just need to figure out which meeting.
Well, I think which meeting should be designated by when this is decision-making process
In
is
which case,
ready.
you may want Alex and Patrick to be the ones.
You can decide. You can send whatever you would like, Chair, Madam Chair.
I'm not gonna arm wrestle anybody over this honor.
I promise it's gonna be nice.
But yeah, we will take this up again, I guess, probably our December, are we meeting in December?
Are we can talk about that at the,
We have traditionally not met in December. I know this is a little bit.
how does everyone feel about the December meeting?
I'm fine with meeting in December. I mean, it's early December.
Do we want to maybe meet and see if we can hash something out so that we're prepared? So maybe we're looking at January for talking to council.
So it'd be December 6th is the first Tuesday.
Do you want to propose to Marie maybe then the second meeting in January so that we're
Okay.
sure that this commission can meet
That
again
would be the
and then
17th.
do whatever work they want to do before coming before council?
And then with this commission, would we also, or could we go to the, to the city council, like, to make the designation the city of the arts? Sure. Is that something that we would, I mean, I think that would be something that we would
I think that
spearhead,
could be a part of this.
You know.
Yeah.
especially to give an example of the different cities around us and how they have this, city
It's how
statement,
city form, yeah.
definition, because I think that would help everybody,
Yeah.
focus,
Does Webster not have a tagline already?
I don't think we do.
We don't, yeah, I looked when I started, there's like we had City of the Arts in a lot of places. And then also, great place to live, work and play or something like that was written in a few other
Yeah.
places, but a lot of cities.
all
say
have
that.
that.
Yeah. And then Queen of the Suburbs was in a few more spots.
That goes way,
Yeah,
way
you
back.
like that.
I think that was the marketing stuff pretty early. Yeah.
I think Kirkwood battles us for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Becky
One
Comedic
beer or
Carpets
something.
one of Princess and Charles, but in city form is what we're doing here.
Just since we're sort of on that part of it, we are in the middle of, as a council, doing some strategic planning, and one of the things that we've been trying to do is identify some overarching values, and creativity is one of those that has been proposed, and I think it should stay in, and so it will fit under that, I think, under this new kind of definition. It's not really new, it's frankly organizing what we already know more than anything else. So hopefully we're going to meet Saturday for a second time. So hopefully there'll be a survey out within the next, 3 to 4 weeks where people can comment on the identified values, and all of you better comment on creativity and how important it is to our city. Yeah.
Creativity.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we will continue that discussion at our next meeting. Just a couple of miscellaneous updates. Do we have any news?
Yeah, so sign funding, I forgot that we passed a budget policy item that says anything unused goes back to the general fund, given the state of our.
Oh.
Which means the sign funding that was left over doesn't exist. However, sitting here today, I had another idea. This is in a park and we have a regular parks tax, so maybe we should start not thinking about this as. Funding has to come from the Arts Commission line, but it is an Arts Commission recommendation that it comes out of the parks line because it is part of maintaining and making the best use of our parks. So let me take a run at the budgeting that way and see if we can't do that. And that would be in this next budget cycle, we just try and get a line item in with that. And we should have the number plus whatever little bit more because costs keep going up.
And I'm wondering, even in this, in our, you're gonna be rewriting the ordinance here. It could even maybe when it gets to the maintenance of these, to work with
Oh,
Parks and Recreation and the
Yeah.
maintenance of these sculptures, because obviously if one of those pads cracked,
Yeah.
we don't have to go out and try to
Yeah.
find a sponsor to, would you give us a they want to donate for the big feathered
Yeah.
piece of artwork. They don't
buy
want
me
to
some
donate.
concrete, please.
Right, exactly. Unless it's a
That's
trove of
excellent.
concrete sculpture or something that we find in,
Yeah.
Well, I know this commission too had talked about, maybe not, maybe I'm getting confused here, that maybe somebody from Parks and Recreation would be sitting on this commission or at least advising in some capacity because there's so much overlap.
Yeah.
occurring so many
We
times.
used to have
Yeah,
she came to a lot of the meetings.
Yvonne.
We
Right.
invited her, I mean, not that she's not welcome to come anyway, but we would specifically invite somebody from Parks to join us regularly.
We just did that on an official thing like quarterly or something,
Yeah.
have them come in and then we could say, oh, well, the next meeting, we're having the Parks and Recreation, let's add some things to the agenda for that situation, which the signs or,
well, I don't know how this city works, but also attaching the commission to a certain department. Because I don't know if that makes sense in terms of, well, I would say advocating for it because it attaches to a specific budget and it attaches to like a
Right.
specific person, director, et cetera.
I know parks, they do already have the Parks Commission and then Green Space, so they've got
We've got many commissions.
yeah.
I
What
don't-
is this commission
I don't
attached
think
to?
that's gonna answer the question, because there's also the historical part on some things that happen.
Yeah, so sometimes historic preservation.
The Parks Department is also creative, because look at all the ornaments that they make for Christmas time. So I just think we just learn how to work together without making such definitions.
All right, so one last thing, and I'm sorry, I know we're coming in on the end of our time here, and I'm sorry that Judy can't be with us
Yeah.
today. This is now the second. Anyway, but did everyone have a chance to look over the letter that Judy prepared? And Laura, does this look like what
Yeah.
we would take?
Yeah, I think that,
I mean, I could lay it on letterhead.
Yeah.
and Yeah.
Yeah, so how does this work? Do
then it
we-
just gets sent to council.
We just literally mail it to them or?
No, you just,
Hand
Jenny will,
I mean, I
Jenny
put it
will
in a letter.
hand it to Katie and Katie will make sure we all get it.
I mean, like, somebody doesn't have to go and actually read this out loud at a meeting, do we?
That would be more attention grabbing and might make things go faster. If I'm being truly honest about it.
Draw it in on a very artsy,
On
draw it in
a
on
velvet pillow.
pillow, yeah.
With our Queen of the Suburb crowns?
Yes.
Yeah, so, if somebody is willing, and you can do this, by the way, via Zoom now, because you can do public comments via Zoom. We're meeting tonight, but that's too soon, but 2 weeks or the first meeting in December. just say, read the letter
Mhm,
or at least present the letter. You probably don't even have to read it.
mhm.
Unless somebody wants to, it's probably a good idea to read it so the people who are listening or there understand,
Mhm.
you know, the history, not just Jerry was just mayor, so now let's name something. This is about something she really helped create, so.
Yeah, well, I am totally willing to read this or let Judy read it since it's her letter. I am never able to attend the first Tuesday of the month.
Okay.
So, do we have to be on the agenda or do we just stand up?
You
Be
can,
remarks
you can
and
just do
visitors,
remarks of community and visitors.
Well, I will find out that last little fact that she wanted to know the date of it. See if I can track that down. If not, I think it's fine to just say 2017 and,
Mhm.
yeah. I'll put it on letterhead.
And just so you all know, there's unlikely to be any decision, because that would be the public comments period, and I'm really trying to get us back to members of the council not going back and forth with people in public comments, because they're not designed to be that way.
Mhm.
And bad things often happen when that.
And then
goes
beginning an approach to the, you know, adopting the city of the arts. Should that start with a letter similar to that?
I
From
think
us
it
to
would,
the-
I think when whoever from the Arts Commission comes to the council work session just to talk about what you're working on in January, that's the appropriate time, I think, to say this is something that we would like to have happen.
All right. All right. Did anyone have comments on the letter? I'm sorry, I probably should have started one.
Sorry, I gotta go. I'm due at to make a little presentation at the Arts in 5 minutes.
There you go.
Don't think I'll make it.
Happy present, blame it on the artists.
I will.
Did anyone have any other comments about the letter? We're all okay if this is the letter we move forward with. All right. Well, many thanks to Judy, who's not here for preparing that for us. Are there any other things that anyone would like to bring?
New business, anything for December, yeah.
Yeah. I do just have one little announcement. Speaking of Webster Arts, we're opening our next gallery exhibit this Friday. So 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. this Friday, if you want to come along. It's seasonal works, so however people have chosen to interpret that. It's always a good time.
Fall.
So, fall, winter, you know.
Who knows what it is?
Who knows?
I
mean,
mean,
you know, we get all
All of
like,
your little artist markets, like, isn't that,
Yes.
those are starting up again and, yeah.
yeah, it's every third Saturday, so there's another one of those coming up.
Is it like Small Business Saturday, right? Isn't it? Maybe is that? the
It
place?
is not, we will be open on Small Business
Okay.
Saturday, so come shop with a pop-up party.
I wanted to, I don't know if this has nothing to do with the Webster's Art Commission, but I'm involved with Walmart Sculpture Park and we're doing a thing called Walmart After Dark, Saturday, November 5th, and it's from 4 to 10 p.m. and just thought everybody might be interested in looking into it. It's a special event we've been putting together all year, so.
Very cool. I know Lawmeyer, there used to be that giant sculpture outside the music building at Webster U's campus. It looked, I always called it the circle tree. It has like it had like a name, like Easter or something that like I don't know.
Right.
I'm always like, I call art as I see it. I'm like, that's a bunny playing a guitar. Like,
Right,
It's got
right.
some name like
After
Awakenings,
hours.
you know, yeah. And but I love the circle tree and that's at Lawmeyer Sculpture Park now. It got moved.
Yeah, they're gonna do some special artists and their calls, and it's just interesting to just go there and just, if we ever are involved with an event, to just kind of see how they are putting it together.
Very nice, great. Anything else anyone would like to bring?
I think Webster Sings is this Sunday.
Oh, yes, Webster Sings, the community singing talent show.
Yeah.
Community music school.
Where is it gonna be?
Community music school, like on
Okay.
Webster East campus, right there on Garden. Yep,
Okay.
okay.
All right, well, if there's nothing else, we will adjourn. And thank you all for sticking with it. We've obviously got a lot more conversation to have. We'll get
Okay,
it done.
so it'll be the first December,
December the 6th.
December 6th.
Yes. And thank you.